Sergio Garcia defeats Ted Chessman on a 12-round unanimous decision. This was actually quite a good fight. One thing I want to address, the scorecard of 115, 114 was absolutely absurd, and I think that judge needs to be investigated because I don't know what fight he was watching. This fight, I'd never heard of Sergio Garcia, the boxer, at all going into this fight. I seen his record was 28-0. I seen that it was quite padded. There was no one really I recognised on it. Now, I actually found out on the Sky broadcast that Sergio Garcia only had, I think, 8 amateur fights and learned in the pro games. Now, that's something I've talked about previous. That is the way I think most people who've had short amateur fights should do it. And basically, when this fight started off, I was kind of shocked with the pace in the first few rounds because Chessman and Garcia both started throwing punches at a very, very frantic pace. Garcia, to me, was a lot more accurate. Definitely, he was finding the home early on for the uppercut. And one thing I noticed was that Garcia was making an effort to throw the shots and stay in the pocket, but he was moving a lot. He was moving his upper body and he was getting out of the pocket, whereas Chessman was just standing stationary. Chessman wasn't moving his head. And I noticed pretty early on in the fight that, as it kind of went on for the first 3 rounds, we'll say, that it was following a pattern that both guys were throwing a lot of punches. I think Garcia was the more accurate. He was actually faster. He seemed to have quite fast hands. And he also had the longer arms as well. Realistically, the longer arms didn't make much of a difference because he wasn't really utilising his reach. He was staying in the pocket the whole time, fighting at mid-range and close range. But he was utilising his reach. Didn't really need to utilise his reach, I should say. Now, Garcia's punches were to head and body. Whereas with Chessman, I noticed that he was throwing, especially more as the fight went on, he was throwing a lot of single headshots. And to me, that was a mistake because I think Ted Chessman lost the first 7 rounds quite clearly, and by the 7th round, his nose was getting bloodied, and he wasn't getting hit hard because Garcia was throwing a lot of arm punches, but still, it's not good for your health getting hit in the head regardless. And I noticed that Ted Chessman was slowing down because even though his punch output was slowing down, he was getting hit a lot, and he was trying to deal with the kind of pace that was already set early on. And Garcia, he seems to have tremendous fitness because his pace just seemed to stay the whole way through for the 12 rounds. Seemed to have no issues. Seemed to have quite good head movement compared to Ted Chessman, he had quite good head movement. It was the 8th round where Chessman started throwing combinations, and that was his best round by far. He actually appeared to buzz Garcia a little bit in that round, and that was kind of when you thought, is there a shift of the tide? But I think that Chessman, he started throwing combinations too late. And in the latter half of that round, it caught up with him because I think he, pretty much ran out of gas at that stage. So even though he started the round off good and was throwing the combinations, he couldn't follow up with anything. So the end of that round kind of was more Garcia on top. And from then on, it was again all Sergio Garcia. By the 11th round, you started to worry for Chessman's health because he was dropping his hands a lot and he was more or less inviting Garcia in to hit him. And by then, Garcia was kind of actually looking better. He was actually moving in and out a lot more. And Garcia looked like, he could do that for another 5 or 6 rounds if needs be. And yeah, in the 11th round, I really started to worry for Chessman because he was bleeding in the mouth. It looked like he didn't have the energy to even hold his hands up because he was dropping his hands a lot and just taking shots. They weren't hard shots, as I said, but he was just taking shots on the head. And I think that was purely down to fatigue. I don't think he actually had the energy because when you're holding your hands up like that, for those who don't know, it is tiring. When you are tired, your hands will drop. And I just don't think Chessman had the energy in the tank to even hold his hands up at that point. One thing as well that I was kind of annoyed at with Chessman was he wasn't going to the body at all, really, because obviously Garcia has a good engine, and obviously he was throwing a lot of punches, he wasn't getting tired. If Chessman went to the body, he could have slowed that down, he could have slowed the pace down, he could have took some of the energy away, maybe he could have took the legs of Garcia away, but he just didn't. He just threw hardly any body punches, to tell you the truth. He didn't really do anything in terms of body punch that I can remember. I think maybe he threw a few in the first round, but that was essentially it. He didn't throw any body punches that I can remember, or any significant body punches either. And that was it. Now, to be honest with you, if Ted Chessman had started throwing combinations earlier and had started throwing body shots earlier, I still don't think he would have won this fight. Sergio Garcia seems a very good fighter. Seems to have a great engine. Not really a big puncher, but he throws a lot of arm punches, so he's not really sitting into these shots. So I can imagine that if he actually tried, he could probably hit a little bit harder. But I think he prefers, quantity over quality as opposed to the other way around. Me personally, I'm more of a person who prefers quality shots as opposed to quantity. But no, Garcia definitely has some skill. there was definitely a skill gap between the two fighters. So I think even if Cheeseman, as I said, had have adopted the style, I thought, where he was throwing a bit more body punches, moving his head a bit more and throwing combinations, I don't think it would have made much of a difference, really. I think he would have taken a bit less of a beating, because Ted Cheeseman is 23 years old, and even though he's only 23 years old, he took a hell of a beating in this fight. He took a lot of head punches, and it's that kind of fight where you worry for someone's health moving forward. Cheeseman's going to need to have a long rest, and he'll probably have to drop back down to British level. There's no harm in that. He's got rivals like Anthony Fowler, Scott Fitzgerald down at British level. If this fight hasn't taken too much out of Cheeseman, I wouldn't mind seeing him against a fighter like one of them fighters, because I've never really rated either Scott Fitzgerald or Anthony Fowler. Anthony Fowler can punch a bit, but he has zero head movement as well. So yeah, again, it's the end of the day. It's what's been happening with a lot of Eddie Hearn prospects, from Lewis Ritson and who else? There was someone else, I think, forget. But a lot of Eddie Hearn prospects, they step up to European level, they're just not quite ready, and they're getting found wanting when they step up to this level, because there is a big gap between a British level and a European level, and then there's an even bigger gap to world level, which you would have thought maybe a Ted Cheeseman would have been just at the right stage to go to European level. He obviously wasn't. It obviously was a bit of a too big of a gap, so he can drop back down to British level. As for Sergio Garcia, it'd be interesting to see what he does moving forward. Would he go up to world level? Would you trust him, or would you pick him against any of the champions? I know I wouldn't. Not that I don't think Garcia is not good enough. I think that Jaime Munguia, that might be an interesting fight, but I think Jaime Munguia hits a bit too hard. I was going to say Charlo, but he's no longer a champion. Tony Harrison, Harrison's slick, good boxer. Jared Hurd, absolutely massive, would just overpower the guy. And who else is there at that weight? Oh no, there's no one else, because Hurd has 2 belts. So yeah, I wouldn't really see Garcia having much of a chance with the world level guys, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. So those are my thoughts on this fight. Commiserations to Ted Cheeseman. I'm sure that he can come again, but I think this fight's taken a couple of years off his career, to be honest. He took a lot of headshots, but he gets a 10 out of 10 for effort. He never stopped trying, never quit. I think that it was just too many headshots, didn't have enough stamina in the tank, and yeah, he just came up against a better fighter on the day. So those are my thoughts on this. Feel free to leave yours down below. Just want to address something. This has been a really weak card. I mean, the main event was all right, but this card for Sky is very, very weak. I'm going to make a video tomorrow addressing this, and addressing the fact that I think that Sky and Eddie Hearn are starting to maybe drift apart, so to speak, because this was a very weak card, and you wonder where these prospects are going to go now, because I think Eddie Hearn is really starting to focus on the American market and the zone now, that I think that Sky maybe might be getting a bit restless on these prospects. That's why they're putting these prospects on these shows. That's why I think maybe they're jumping them up to European level a fight or two too soon. So, I'll talk about that tomorrow. So, leave you with that. We got Kovalev Alvarez later. That's probably going to go out in the morning. I'm probably not. Well, actually, I'm not going to stay up and watch that fight. I'm quite tired, and I'll watch that in the morning and get a post-fight video out in the morning. So, stay tuned for that. So, those are my thoughts on this fight. As always, leave yours down below, and I'll talk to you after.